Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. I'm SocietySucks and today I'm checking out what if the Electoral College is tied by CGP Grey. I know this is kind of random because the presidential election in the US already happened a long time ago now. It's what, 7 months? Yeah, no, it's about 6 or 7 months since it happened. But this popped up in my recommended and I want to know what happens if the Electoral College is tied. So enough yapping, let's get to watching.
The United States picks its president with the Electoral College, 538 votes distributed by population, mostly to the 50 states and...
Oh yeah, I probably should have mentioned this earlier. This video is also 12 years old, so this might be outdated information or there might be new solutions for this. Although given how low the chances are of there being a tie, I assume there's nothing new to solve this issue because it's probably never even happened once during history. So they probably don't even think about it.
DC. To become a president, you need to win a majority of those votes. But 538 is an even number, so what happens when the race for president is tied? Don't worry, there's an 18th century solution to the problem. If the Electoral College is tied, the House of Representatives breaks that tie. As the name implies, the House is filled with representatives from each of the states. The more people in a state, the more representatives it has, and there are 435 in total. Thankfully, an odd number and a guaranteed tiebreaker.
Yep.
Except there's a catch. Each representative doesn't get one vote, it's each state that gets one vote. So Florida's 27 representatives have to decide amongst themselves who to support before casting Florida's one vote to help break the tie. Meanwhile, thinly populated Alaska's sole representative has only to consult himself before casting Alaska's vote.
He gets to choose whatever the hell he wants.
This is an incredibly disproportionate system because just 10 states, California, Texas, New York, Florida, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Georgia, and North Carolina, contain more than half the population of the United States, but get only 20% of the votes if the race for president is tied. And the other 40 states with less than half the population get 80% of the votes. While an exact tie is unlikely, this system is also used if there are more than 2 candidates for president and none of them gets a majority in the Electoral College, which is exactly what happened when 4 candidates ran for president in 1824.
So this has actually happened before. I mean, obviously it wasn't a tie between 2 people, but it's close enough.
Andrew Jackson got the most votes from Americans and the most votes in the Electoral College, but not a majority, so the race was turned over to the House of Representatives voting as states who picked John Quincy Adams instead. In a modern America with more states, a 3-way race can have horrifically disproportionate results. Consider a third-party candidate who loves the small states and who the small states love in return. He gets the fewest Electoral College votes, but enough to ensure that neither of the 2 more popular candidates gets a majority, so now the House decides the winner,
because
and those 26 smallest states representing just 17% of the population can pick their man as president, even though 83% of Americans didn't vote for him. It's unlikely, but it really shouldn't even be.
When was the last time there were even 3 people running? I mean, as far as I know, at least during my lifetime, it's always been just 2 candidates, one from the Democrats, the other from the Republicans. But I'm also not an American, so I'm not really that invested in this. But yeah, I don't remember there being more than 2 candidates, at least in the last 12 years.
Possible. Anyway, all this talk of presidents has left the vice president unmentioned. A reasonable person might assume that he just comes along with the president, but no. When there's a tie, the Senate independently picks the vice president, so the United States could end up with a president from one party and a vice president from the other, which might make for some very
that sounds like a bad idea.
But even this crazy system for resolving a tie isn't guaranteed to work.
There would definitely be some conflict there.
Because there are 100 members of the Senate, and in the House of Representatives, they're forced to vote as 50 states, and many of those states have 10 or 8 representatives, making the whole system tie-tacular with all those even numbers. So if the House can't pick the president, but the Senate has picked the vice president, then the vice president becomes acting president until the House can make up its mind. But if neither the House can pick the president, nor the Senate can pick the vice president, then the Speaker of the House becomes acting president until either branch of Congress picks someone. And that's how the United States would resolve a tied race for president, though it might be faster and more fair to just flip a coin.
I don't know about that one. Flipping a coin to decide who's going to be one of the most powerful people on Earth? It sounds like a horrible idea. Yeah, like I said in the beginning, I'm assuming that this is still accurate information because the chances of the Electoral College ever being tied are so low they probably don't even think about solutions in case this does happen. because of just how unlikely it actually is to happen. And with the way US politics have been, at least in the last, I don't know, 10 years, it's always gonna be two candidates. One that represents the Democrats, the other that represents the Republicans. I doubt that's going to change, especially with the way politics are in the United States. Pretty much always just gonna be between those two. So I just highly doubt that a tie is ever gonna happen. So yeah, this really just isn't much of an issue. And there's not really much more to say, so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing and leaving a like. If you want to see more reactions, check out this video right here, and with that, I'll see you in the next video.